Why? Does your esteemed sect have any objections? Lin Feng asked with confusion. Sir, you must be joking. The collection of texts in our sect may not be extensive, but each of them was collected by the countless seniors in our Jadeite sect slowly over time. They are only open to the elders or disciples of our sect. Even honorary elders can only enter the library after making meritorious contributions. Lin Feng shook his head, and a trace of regret appeared on his face. He sighed and said, I see. However, I am quite curious about the history of the Jadeite sect and about nomological cultivation. Hence, I would like to trouble you to inform your sect master about the matter of browsing the texts. If you need anything, I will naturally provide it. Seeing that the atmosphere between the two parties was a little tense, Luo Hao lamented at length inwardly. He finally understood why Lin Feng had told him not to blame him previously. Lin Feng's intention for coming to the Jadeite sect was nothing as simple as visiting the Jadeite sect. It was to forcefully enter the Jadeite sect's library. There was no way the entire Jadeite sect could be happy about it. If this caused another commotion, Lin Feng was Luo Hao's referrer. Even if the Jadeite sect reluctantly accepted Luo Hao, how could Luo Hao not have a hard time in the Jadeite sect in the future? However, this was not something Luo Hao could decide. He could only hold in his anxiety now and hope that the situation would not worsen. Just as both parties were on the verge of conflict, Luo Hao's eyes suddenly lit up. He saw that his sister seemed to be in the crowd ahead. Luo Jing, Luo Jing! Luo Hao hurriedly shouted. Lin Feng and the others, who were originally a little hostile, were all distracted by Luo Hao's voice. In the crowd in front, a delicate girl also turned around. Her gaze seemed to be searching around. Brother! The girl's expression changed slightly. Why would her brother Luo Hao come to the Jadeite sect? Luo Hao quickly ran up to Luo Jing. He realized that she was nervous, as if she was afraid of something. Luo Jing, what's wrong? Luo Hao studied Luo Jing carefully, and realized that there was a man in white behind her. The man's expression was arrogant as he said coldly, Who are you to Luo Jing? I'm her brother. An ordinary person? Luo Jing, quickly send your brother away. It won't be good if you miss the time. The man's attitude was very cold, and Luo Jing also appeared a little anxious. She hurriedly said, Brother, leave quickly. What are you doing here? Luo Jing, what's your relationship with him? Luo Jing was a little tongue-tied, not knowing how to explain. You still haven't left? There's no harm in telling you. Your sister volunteered to be my servant. Servant? Luo Hao's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly asked, Luo Jing, aren't you a disciple of the Jadeite sect? You have a physique with dual attributes, water and fire. You're an outstanding disciple of the Jadeite sect. Luo Hao could not believe it. The sister he had always been proud of was actually someone else's servant. How was this possible? Brother, although I'm talented, I don't have many resources. Even nomological cultivators need resources. For example, some gems or mystic realms that can help with comprehension all require spirit jades. The spirit jades you give me every month are not enough at all. Moreover, I'm only an outer disciple. If I can't achieve anything in 10 years and advance to become an inner disciple, I'll be kicked out. Brother, I don't want to embarrass you, and I don't want to be kicked out either. I volunteered to become Senior Yan's servant. At least this way, I can obtain enough cultivation resources. Luo Jing gritted her teeth and told Luo Hao the truth. The world of cultivation was cruel, just like how Luo Hao had to struggle to survive the city. When he was young, some hooligans would rob his spirit jade or bully him. Luo Hao had to learn to be observant and flexible, and become more ruthless than the hooligans in order to not be bullied. It was the same for Luo Jing. Although she was a cultivator, she was the bottom class. Even after entering the Jadeite sect, she was still the bottom class. She had to know how to make trade-offs and toady to others to compete for cultivation resources. Luo Hao was in a daze. He did not blame Luo Jing anymore. The world of cultivation was also very harsh. He should have thought of it long ago. How could an ordinary girl like Luo Jing live happily in a cultivation sect? just for the little amount of spirit jade he provided every month? Brother, Luo Jing could not bear it. If she had a way, she would never want to tell Luo Hao the truth. She really hoped that she could see the smile on Luo Hao's face every time she returned, and be a sister Luo Hao could be proud of. Unfortunately, everything was over now. Luo Hao already knew the truth. Luo Hao, this is your sister? At some point, Lin Feng had arrived in front of Luo Hao. Greetings, senior and elders. When Luo Jing saw Lin Feng and the two elders of the Jadeite sect behind him, her heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly bowed. She did not know how her brother managed to befriend such an important figure. Luo Hao raised his head. His eyes were a little red, but he was very calm. He said in a low voice, "Senior, she's my sister. Do you need help?" Lin Feng suddenly spoke. Luo Hao's heart skipped a beat. He knew that with just a word from Lin Feng, his sister would be able to return. However, if she did not become a servant, what would happen to his sister's cultivation resources? Lin Feng was just someone they had met by chance. How could anyone offer so much help for no reason in this world? From a very young age, Luo Hao had already understood a principle. If he wanted to change his situation, he could only rely on himself. There's no need, senior. This is my sister's choice. Moreover, I'm her brother. I'm the one who failed to take good care of her. If I could, I definitely wouldn't blame senior. Lin Feng knew what Luo Hao meant by blame. It seemed like Luo Hao was already more determined to become a disciple of the Jadeite sect. This also made Lin Feng rather satisfied. All right, elders. Young Luo Hao is quite talented, but he didn't become a disciple of the Jadeite sect. Can you make an exception? There are rules in the sect. It's really... The two elders were a little reluctant. As dignified elders, it was impossible that they had no authority at all. What was there to be reluctant about in arranging to take in a mere outer disciple? How about this? Lin Feng reached out and grabbed. Instantly, it was as if the entire Jadeite sect shook. Immediately after, a huge vortex appeared out of thin air, and an innumerable amount of energy gathered, kept compressing in a frenzy. Finally, a huge energy module dozens of meters in diameter was formed. A strange light flowed on it as it fell to the ground. Thud. Dust rose around the enormous energy module on the ground. Everyone's eyes widened in shock as they stared. Elders, how about this energy module? Is it enough for the spirit jades needed for Luo Hao to become an outer disciple? For a moment, the two elders looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. Compared to this energy module, they were even more shocked that Lin Feng could condense an energy module at will. Such a skill was very rare even among archaic deities. Not enough? Then what about this? Lin Feng waved his hand again. Immediately, the huge sky seemed to have darkened. Infinite energy gathered, forming energy vortexes. Then, a large amount of energy modules fell continuously from these vortexes. They pattered onto the ground like hail. At this moment, everyone was stunned. Every energy module was extremely pure, countless times more so than the energy contained in spirit jades. Now, there was an energy rain. Even some powerful archaic deities definitely did not have such a terrifying method. It was simply shocking. The shock was incomparable. Even Luo Hao, who had long seen Lin Feng's method of conjuring energy at will, was very shocked at this moment. An energy rain was falling from the sky. What kind of method was this? However, after their shock, countless disciples of the Jadeite sect immediately made a move, and that was to snatch. There was so much energy. That was genuine energy. Every module of energy was countless times more valuable than spirit jade. Luo Hao also began to pick up the energy modules on the ground immediately. This could not be missed. Even becoming a disciple of the Jadeite sect required energy. Seeing the chaos in the Jadeite sect all of a sudden, the two elders were simply furious. However, they did not dare to flare up in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng's move seemed unthinking and casual, but in reality, the two of them knew very well that this was intimidation. It was to intimidate the Jadeite sect. How could someone who could casually create an energy rain be ordinary? My apologies for the mess, elders. When will your sect master arrive? Lin Feng changed the topic. His tone was still very calm, but the two elders were no longer as relaxed as before. The sect master is here. At this moment, a violet aura tore through the sky. Immediately after, a middle-aged man with a powerful aura and a regal bearing flew in front of Lin Feng. Sir, your energy rain just now was really an eye-opener for us. That was nothing, sect master, Lin Feng said politely. Sir, you wish to visit the library of our Jadeite sect? That's right. Sect master, please allow this for me. Alas, actually, I'm in a difficult position too. The library is an important place of the Jadeite sect. Apart from the elders and disciples of our sect, no one is allowed to enter, let alone browse through it at will. If you want to join my Jadeite sect as an honorary elder, after making meritorious contributions for 3 to 5 years, you can naturally enter the library. The sect master calmly stated the conditions of the Jadeite sect. Although Lin Feng's background was unknown, the Jadeite sect did not want to offend an archaic god over nothing. In particular, it was very likely that Lin Feng was not an ordinary archaic god. That would be even more troublesome. Hence, this compromise was made. 3 to 5 years? A smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. He had to make meritorious contributions, in addition to staying for 3 to 5 years. He had no intention of staying here for 3 to 5 years. Excuse me. Lin Feng's expression darkened. Immediately, his body emitted a powerful aura. Are you going to attack? The sect leader of the Jadeite sect shouted. Immediately, the array in the void appeared and disappeared. Moreover, powerful auras appeared. They were all from the Jadeite sect's ancestral nomological deities. No one from the Jadeite sect had ever dared to attack in the Jadeite sect, not even those top-notch archaic deities. The Jadeite sect was a 10,000-year-old sect. How powerful was its foundation? Even if Lin Feng was not weak, how could the Jadeite sect be afraid of Lin Feng's threat? Archaic deity? Who said I'm an archaic deity? A slight smile appeared on Lin Feng's lips. He extended his hand and pointed at the void. Law of tides. Buzz. As Lin Feng pointed, rolling tides immediately appeared in the void. They surged like a tsunami, wreaking havoc in the Jadeite sect. One mountain after another was shattered by the tides. Confine! The sect leader of the Jadeite sect glared angrily. He was incomparably furious. He controlled the array and tried to imprison the tides Lin Feng used. This array was indeed very powerful. Ordinary archaic gods would be confined. Even elementary planetary laws probably could not cause much of a stir. Lin Feng sensed the power of many laws at once. They were all planetary laws. It seemed like ancestral nomological deities of the Jadeite sect had made their move. This was a true battle of laws. They were all ancestors at the level of nomological deities. Many disciples of the Jadeite sect looked up to them. Even Luo Hao clenched his fists tightly. Even though he was only an ordinary person, he knew that Lin Feng must be resisting many ancestral nomological deities of the Jadeite sect alone at this moment. Destroy! Lin Feng pointed lightly with his finger. Immediately, the law of tides surged again, shattering many of the surrounding laws at once, sweeping over majestically once more. Advanced law! The sect leader of the Jadeite sect exclaimed. This was an advanced law that could break all techniques with a single technique. Before advanced laws, no matter how many nomological deities the Jadeite sect had, what was the use? Stop, stop, stop. Senior, please stop. A weak smile appeared on the Jadeite sect master's face, and he felt even more bitter. What had they just done? They actually dared to attack a nomological deity who had comprehended the advanced law. That was simply courting death. This was an advanced law that could break all techniques with a single technique. Lin Feng alone could destroy the entire Jadeite sect. Oh? You agreed. Lin Feng looked at the sect master of the Jadeite sect with a half-smile. Yes, we'll agree to all of Senior's requests. How could the Jadeite sect master dare to disagree? Compared to the survival of the sect, dignity was a small matter. If the Jadeite sect was destroyed by Lin Feng because of some pride, he, the Jadeite sect master, would have committed the unforgivable. A nomological deity who had comprehended advanced laws was second to none even in the entire Jadeite island. Perhaps only those top major sects on the continents on the planet had powerful nomological deities who had comprehended advanced laws among them. If you had seen sense earlier, we wouldn't have had to go through all that trouble. A pity about all these mountains. Lin Feng shook his head and sighed. The Jade sect master was also grieving for the losses. In just a short period of time, Lin Feng used the advanced law of tides and swept through the entire Jadeite sect. Those few mountains were originally places for the ancestors to cultivate, and were even protected by arrays, but they were all easily destroyed by Lin Feng's law of tides. This was enough to show how powerful advanced laws were. However, Lin Feng was still somewhat unsatisfied. Now, he had finally seen the so-called nomological deities. They had indeed comprehended planetary laws, and their understanding of laws was even deeper than Lin Feng's. In particular, in battling with laws, those ancestral nomological deities had many minor combat techniques, and were rather difficult to deal with. If not for the fact that Lin Feng had comprehended an advanced law, which was on a whole other level and enough to sweep through everything by force, he would probably be in some trouble now, and might even be forced to use his combat body. If he had used his combat body, it would be troublesome. Perhaps even the entire planet would be destroyed by Lin Feng's combat body. If that happened, Lin Feng would no longer be able to understand the secrets on these planets. Take me to the library. Senior, this way, please. The Jadeite sect master had no choice but to personally lead Lin Feng to the library. During this period of time, the few ancestral nomological deities also reached a consensus that they absolutely could not provoke Lin Feng. After bringing Lin Feng to the entrance of the library, the Jadeite sect master said almost pleadingly, "Senior, it's not easy to pass down the legacy of our Jadeite sect for 10,000 years. Senior, browse to your heart's content. But please do not spread the numerous nomological cultivation techniques of our Jadeite sect. I'm just browsing through them. I'm not after the legacy of your Jadeite sect." "That's good. I'll take my leave." The Jadeite sect master heaved a sigh of relief. He could only pray that Lin Feng would keep his word, and would only browse through the texts without spreading the Jadeite sect's techniques. In the secret chamber of the Jadeite sect, at this moment, a total of 9 nomological deities of the Jadeite sect, including the sect master, were already gathered in the secret chamber. Swoosh! Suddenly, the door to the secret chamber opened, and a silver-haired old man walked in. "Ancestor! Ancestor has finally exited seclusion. Ancestor, you have finally exited seclusion. If you took any longer, our Jadeite sect would be in trouble." This silver-haired old man was the founder of the Jadeite sect, Ancestor Jadeite. It was rumored in the outside world that Ancestor Jadeite was long dead. However, from the looks of it, this was completely unfounded. Ancestor Jadeite was still alive and well. Moreover, many people did not know. Only the elder nomological deities of the Jadeite sect knew that their ancestral master was an archaic cultivator. An archaic cultivator had actually founded a nomological cultivation sect. Perhaps this was an inexplicable mockery of nomological cultivation. Ancestor Jadeite glanced at everyone and said in a hoarse voice, "What did you rouse me for?" It seemed like Ancestor Jadeite was also very displeased. He had always been cultivating in seclusion. No one was allowed to rouse him unless it was a life-or-death juncture for the sect. But now, these elder nomological deities were all unharmed. How could this be considered a life-or-death juncture? If he did not receive a satisfactory answer, he would be very displeased. Seeing that Ancestor Jadeite was a little displeased, the sect master hurriedly said, "Ancestor, we roused you because we had no choice. There's really nothing our Jadeite sect can do." Then, the sect master explained Lin Feng's matter in detail. "Advanced law? Are you sure you're not mistaken?" A strange glint appeared on Ancestor Jadeite's face. "Ancestor, even if I'm wrong, all the elders had attacked." "How could they be wrong?" The other elders also nodded and said, That's right. There's no mistake. It's indeed an advanced law. Our laws are no threat to the other party. The other party can break all techniques with a single technique. It's definitely an advanced law. Moreover, we all judged that he was an archaic cultivator previously, but we didn't expect him to be a nomological cultivator. His comprehension of law is so high, it's unbelievable. Ancestor Jadeite pondered for a long time and said, "Where has he gone now?" "The library. I'll meet him myself." Ancestor Jadeite immediately made the decision. In the library, Lin Feng was standing in front of a huge bookshelf packed densely with books. History. What Lin Feng wanted to find were some historical books. He needed to understand the history of this planet, and even the history of the cultivators here, and find records regarding the silent galaxy. However, there were very few such ancient books. Fortunately, the Jadeite sect was indeed worthy of being a 10,000-year-old sect. No matter how few ancient books there were, they had still archived some. Lin Feng reached out and grabbed the few historical books. He quickly flipped through them. Most of these historical books recorded the history of the Jadeite island. There were only a few records regarding the silent galaxy. They all recorded a great divine sovereign called Divine Sovereign Void Sky. It was Divine Sovereign Void Sky who established this peaceful area, taught people how to cultivate, and protected cultivators. Divine Sovereign Void Sky? A sharp glint flashed across Lin Feng's eyes. He knew about divine kings, divine venerables, and divine emperors, but he had never heard of any divine sovereigns. Moreover, Divine Sovereign Void Sky could not help but remind Lin Feng of Divine Emperor Void Sky. Could the two be related? According to historical records, Divine Sovereign Void Sky was the founder of this region, the main force resisting those terrifying silent beasts, and the patron saint. All cultivators addressed Divine Sovereign Void Sky respectfully as Ancestral Master. This Divine Sovereign Void Sky might know something about the Void Sky Divine Palace, and even have clues on it. For a moment, many thoughts flashed through Lin Feng's mind. There were records regarding the Divine Sovereign Void Sky in the historical books. They also recorded a major event, which was regarding the division between archaic and nomological cultivators. The Divine Sovereign Void Sky was even involved. Divine Sovereign Void Sky supported nomological cultivation. This was the real reason why archaic cultivation gradually disappeared, while nomological cultivation gradually became the mainstream of cultivation. Moreover, there was a detailed introduction of archaic cultivation and nomological cultivation. Archaic cultivators usually cultivated the combat body. It was also possible for them to comprehend laws, but they mainly cultivated the combat body. They could enter the cosmos and fight with those silent beasts. In fact, Divine Sovereign Void Sky was a powerful archaic cultivator who could fight with those terrifying beasts whose bodies reached light years in size. From this, it could be seen that Divine Sovereign Void Sky was very likely a Grand Emperor, and a very powerful one at that. On the other hand, nomological cultivators mainly comprehended laws. Moreover, outstanding cultivators specially comprehended the laws corresponding to their innate talents. For example, people with fire attribute innate physiques had always comprehended fire attribute laws. After billions of years of development, nomological cultivators gradually occupied the mainstream of cultivation because almost no resources were consumed. However, innate talent and comprehension determined everything. Moreover, innate talent was the stepping stone. Only comprehension could determine how far one could go in the future. Both were indispensable. Moreover, some powerful nomological deities were also born among the nomological cultivators. They could enter the universe to fight with those silent beasts. In addition, the cosmic array protecting the entire region was not set up by Divine Sovereign Void Sky alone. Instead, generations of nomological deities advanced one after another, perfecting it bit by bit, before they could finally contend with the Grand Emperor-level silent beasts. Then, Lin Feng began to browse through the books on nomological cultivation. Nomological cultivation was divided into many steps. The first step was to sense the law, then slowly study the law, and finally master it. In the beginning it was the rudimentary law, and gradually it would move on to the planetary law. Comprehending rudimentary law just made one a nomological cultivator. If one could comprehend planetary laws, they would become an esteemed nomological deity. They could comprehend arrays and use laws to do many things. Moreover, in the nomological cultivation books, regarding the use of laws by the nomological deities to fight, some of the laws and combat techniques were also an eye-opener for Lin Feng. Perhaps the cultivators in this world were not very strong, but they were specialized in various fields. They had studied and comprehended laws for a long time, so they had a very thorough understanding of laws. Some of the law combat techniques derived were even rather specific. Lin Feng benefited greatly. Among them, nomological cultivators were also divided into nomological deities and nomological supremacies. Lin Feng immediately grasped some of the key points. Nomological supremacies? It means they had comprehended advanced laws and become the strongest among nomological cultivators. Lin Feng muttered softly, but his gaze became sharper and sharper. Comprehending advanced laws meant being the strongest nomological supremacies? In that case, there was no ultimate law in this world. Or rather, they did not know that there was an ultimate law. Could it be that divine sovereign void sky did not impart the ultimate law? Or could it be that even divine sovereign void sky could not comprehend the ultimate law? Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly, and he had some vague ideas. Be it nomological cultivation or archaic cultivation, they were relevant to divine sovereign void sky. The cultivation techniques were even imparted by divine sovereign void sky. Moreover, according to the description, divine sovereign void sky might be a grand emperor, and a very powerful one at that. A grand emperor who had not comprehended the ultimate law? It was really possible. Apart from top-notch grand emperors, it was almost impossible for other grand emperors to comprehend the ultimate law. Perhaps divine sovereign void sky also did not manage to comprehend the ultimate law. Many thoughts flashed through Lin Feng's mind at once. Vaguely, he developed some guesses. However, all of them were just guesses, and all of them pointed to divine sovereign void sky. If he wanted to understand everything, he had to find divine sovereign void sky. However, Lin Feng was not in a hurry. He just strolled through the library and flipped through all the books. He only needed to flip through them once to memorize all the content. Perhaps he could find something that interested him. Ha! Suddenly, Lin Feng stopped in his tracks. You can come out now. Lin Feng spoke indifferently, seemingly to the air. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, the air seemed to distort. A silver-haired old man appeared in the library, as expected of someone who has comprehended the advanced law. However, should I call you a nomological supremacy? Or a venerable? Swoosh. Lin Feng suddenly turned around and stared intently at the silver-haired old man. He could also tell that the other party was a venerable, a genuine cosmic cultivator. Who are you? Lin Feng did not answer directly. Instead, he stared intently at the silver-haired old man. Who am I? I'm Ancestor Jadeite. If we were in the universe outside, I'd be Venerable Jadeite. Ancestor Jadeite also stared intently at Lin Feng. He could tell at a glance that Lin Feng did not belong to the Silent Galaxy. The so-called archaic cultivators had actually long disappeared in this world. True archaic cultivators were all cosmic cultivators who entered the Silent Galaxy from beyond it. Venerable Jadeite? You're a cosmic cultivator. Of course. Aren't you a cosmic cultivator too? Ancestor Jadeite gave a half-smile. The two of them simply sat down in the library. Lin Feng had many questions now. He originally wanted to look for divine sovereign void sky, but he did not expect Ancestor Jadeite to also be a cultivator from beyond this world. Then things would be easier. May I ask who you are? Lin Feng. Venerable Lin Feng. You just entered the Silent Galaxy from the outside, right? It was actually normal for Ancestor Jadeite to treat Lin Feng as a venerable. Lin Feng had only undergone 7 life transitions in the first place, so he was naturally a venerable. That he was able to become a Grand Emperor was in terms of combat power. That's right. I just entered the Silent Galaxy from the outside. Alas, you were also swept into the Silent Galaxy? No, I'm here to investigate the matter of the silent beasts in the silent galaxy. Many silent beasts suddenly appeared at the border we were guarding, and there were even silent beasts comparable to top-notch Grand Emperors among them. That's why I thought of entering the silent galaxy to investigate. You shouldn't have entered. Once you enter the silent galaxy, it will be difficult to get out again. Huh? What do you mean? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Although he knew that the silent galaxy was very dangerous, ever since he entered, he had relied on the law of space to survive. He was still waiting to leave the silent galaxy and return to the universe. But now, Ancestor Jadeite said that he couldn't leave the silent galaxy? Ancestor Jadeite raised his head and shook his head helplessly. You probably have not tried to leave the silent galaxy yet, right? Actually, there's no need to try. No matter what method you use, you can't leave the silent galaxy. Even if everyone knows that there is a border to the silent galaxy, even if you keep going in an established direction, you will only circle around in the galaxy in the end and never reach the border. There's no way to reach the border? Then how did the silent beasts leave? Lin Feng remembered that at the border, the silent beasts came wave after wave. They were countless. Those silent beasts were born in the silent galaxy in the first place. They can leave, but we can't. Moreover, even the silent beasts reached the border inexplicably and bizarrely. Even they probably don't know what's going on. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He could not leave. He did not believe it at all. However, looking at Ancestor Jadeite, there was no need for him to lie to Lin Feng at all. No one has ever left the silent galaxy? That's not necessarily the case. As I've said, some people were just lucky enough to be sent out of the silent galaxy inexplicably. Without such luck, even a divine king can forget about leaving. Lin Feng's heart sank. If the truth was really as Ancestor Jadeite had said, things would be troublesome. What about Divine Sovereign Void Sky? He can't leave either. Of course, Divine Sovereign Void Sky even comprehended the law of space, but he still cannot leave. Law of space. Lin Feng was a little curious. Although he had comprehended the law of space, he had never encountered anyone else who had comprehended the law of space in this universe. This mysterious divine sovereign void sky had actually comprehended the law of space. This really surprised Lin Feng. It's not just the law of space. Divine sovereign void sky is the most astonishing and monstrous genius I've ever seen. In terms of comprehension of laws, he's simply unparalleled. Not only is there the law of space, there's also the law of fire, the law of ice, the law of metal, and so on. In short, Divine Sovereign Void Sky has comprehended the laws of all 5 elements, as well as some other special laws, large or small. Divine Sovereign Void Sky is proficient in all of them. Divine Sovereign Void Sky was the only one who could not comprehend the laws of time and life. Even those divine kings, divine venerables, and even divine emperors in the universe can't compare to such talent. Right? At the mention of Divine Sovereign Void Sky, Ancestor Jadeite exclaimed repeatedly. It seemed like he was already convinced of Divine Sovereign Void Sky's ability. Indeed, it was already very impressive for ordinary cultivators to know a law, let alone 2 laws, 3 laws, and even innumerable laws. That was no longer something that could be described by aptitude or comprehension. Divine Sovereign Void Sky is a Grand Emperor? No, he doesn't seem to be a Grand Emperor, but a Venerable too. However, he has the enhancement of so many laws. It's even rumored that he might have comprehended the ultimate law. Therefore, his strength is comparable to a Grand Emperor, and he's one of the best among Grand Emperors. In some aspects, he's even comparable to a top-notch Grand Emperor. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. As expected, Divine Sovereign Void Sky was a Grand Emperor, and a very powerful entity even among Grand Emperors. Previously, Lin Feng had guessed that Divine Sovereign Void Sky had not comprehended the ultimate law, but now he realized that he was wrong. Divine Sovereign Void Sky had comprehended the ultimate law, and had even attained the ultimate level for more than 1 law. Even though Divine Sovereign Void Sky might have been in the silent galaxy for billions of years, Lin Feng had never seen such an outstanding cultivator who could surpass himself in the comprehension of laws. This Divine Sovereign Void Sky probably had a shocking secret too. Ancestor Jadeite, How much do you know about the origins of divine sovereign void sky? Origin. Ancestor Jadeite thought for a moment. Finally, he shook his head and said, Divine sovereign void sky has been here for a very long time. He can be considered one of the oldest entities. There are many legends about his past, but in reality, they are all illusory and groundless. There are no valuable clues at all. Many people speculate that divine sovereign void sky was also a cultivator who accidentally entered the silent galaxy from the universe. However, he was very lucky and survived until now. Moreover, he established an enormous safe zone. Lin Feng was not surprised that divine sovereign void sky's origins were a mystery. Then, Lin Feng's tone was solemn as he asked word by word, Ancestor Jadeite, don't you suspect that divine sovereign void sky has secrets? No matter how talented a cultivator is, how can he comprehend so many laws? It's even rumored that he comprehended the ultimate law. He's not a grand emperor, yet he had comprehended the ultimate law. Do you all believe that it's because he's outstandingly talented? As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, Ancestor Jadeite fell silent. After a long while, Ancestor Jadeite lifted his head and sneered. So what if we are suspicious? There are a total of 81 planets here. Divine sovereign void sky traveled through the silent galaxy for a long time before transferring them over one by one. Even the core of the entire cosmic array is in divine sovereign void sky's hands. He is the only ruler and the strongest. So what if there are suspicions? Ha! Lin Feng sensed that something was amiss. From Ancestor Jadeite tone, he seemed to be very displeased with divine sovereign void sky, as if his suppressed anger was about to erupt. It seemed very inappropriate to show such an obvious attitude in front of an outsider, especially towards the strongest expert like divine sovereign void sky. Hence, Lin Feng probed, Ancestor Jadeite, you seem to be dissatisfied with divine sovereign void sky? Humph, you don't have to probe. I'm not the only one who's dissatisfied. In fact, many people are dissatisfied, be it archaic cultivators or nomological cultivators. Of course, even the strongest nomological cultivator at the moment has only comprehended advanced laws. Divine sovereign void sky has not passed down the ultimate law. How difficult would it be for a cultivator to comprehend the ultimate law bit by bit, relying only on himself? The nomological cultivators are discontent, and so are the archaic cultivators. However, divine sovereign void sky's powerful strength can suppress everything. That's why the unrest did not erupt. Why are you discontent? Divine sovereign void sky transferred those geniuses, especially those who comprehended laws, into the void sky divine temple time and time again. No one has ever come out. Some people say that divine sovereign void sky used some special secret technique to absorb the comprehension of laws from those geniuses, which is how he could comprehend so many laws. Some people also say that divine sovereign void sky is using these geniuses to find something. In short, all the cultivators who were wanted by divine sovereign void sky never returned. We don't know when divine sovereign void sky will attack us. Everyone is fearful for their own safety. How can they still be loyal to divine sovereign void sky? A sharp glint flashed across Lin Feng's eyes. It seemed like many cultivators had long harbored a huge conflict with divine sovereign void sky. It was just that divine sovereign void sky was powerful, so it had not erupted for a long time. Why is Ancestor Jadeite telling me all this? Lin Feng did not believe that Ancestor Jadeite was telling him this information out of the goodness of his heart. A smile appeared on Ancestor Jadeite's face as he said, It's very simple. Divine sovereign void sky has incurred the wrath of the masses. Dozens of venerables have already secretly joined forces and formulated a foolproof plan to kill divine sovereign void sky for certain. At that time, won't the many treasures in the void sky divine temple, and even the secrets behind divine sovereign void sky's comprehension of so many laws, be ours? What if I don't join you? Lin Feng said calmly. Then you know too much. We will inform divine sovereign void sky that a cultivator who has comprehended advanced laws has arrived from the universe. Divine sovereign void sky definitely will not let off a cultivator who has comprehended advanced laws. Aren't you afraid that I'll tell Divine Sovereign Void Sky everything you said? That reminds me. Alas, looks like I can only silence you now. Ancestor Jadeite looked like he was sighing. But Lin Feng could sense that a few powerful auras had suddenly appeared around him, and they were all the auras of venerables. Moreover, the cosmic array had also been activated. A venerable seemed to be personally presiding over it. The power was different, and was enough to trap top-notch venerables. The Jadeite sect was subtle. Even Lin Feng had not discovered that so many experts were hidden previously. Interesting. Looks like I have no choice. Ancestor Jadeite did not say anything. Instead, he stared at Lin Feng calmly. He believed that Lin Feng would make the best choice. All right, since I know so many of your secrets, it seems like I have no choice but to take your side. Lin Feng revealed a trace of helplessness in his words. Haha, Venerable Lin Feng has made the right choice. You will definitely not regret it in the future. You will even be glad about your choice today. You can browse through the library to your heart's content. Ancestor Jadeite disappeared directly. He must have used the array to disappear without a trace. However, Lin Feng could still sense it with the sharpness of the law of space. Lin Feng could even sense that some gazes in the surroundings were still on him, secretly monitoring him. Lin Feng could not help but sneer inwardly. Interesting. I just came to the Jadeite sect, and there's already such a big show. What's this? Secret opponents of Divine Sovereign Void Sky. However, sooner or later, Lin Feng would have to talk with Divine Sovereign Void Sky himself. This was just as well now. He would like to see if these people could actually succeed. Even though Lin Feng had never seen Divine Sovereign Void Sky before, he knew that he was no small matter. He had been in the Silent Galaxy for billions of years and had a deep foundation. How could a few dozen venerables overturn him? Moreover, Lin Feng could sense that Ancestor Jadeite was not telling the truth. If they wanted to revolt and deal with Divine Sovereign Void Sky, there were probably more than just a few dozen venerables. The matter was very complex. However, to Lin Feng, the more complex and chaotic it was, the better. The final victor, when the curtain lifted, was still uncertain. Hence, Lin Feng suddenly became an honorary elder of the Jadeite sect for no reason, and was highly valued by the entire Jadeite sect. Lin Feng also took it calmly in stride. He even took the time to give Luo Hao some pointers, making Luo Hao's situation much better. Everything seemed to be calm, and everything in the Jadeite sect was in order. However, Lin Feng knew that there was an undercurrent behind this calmness. Many mysterious venerables had already come and gone in the Jadeite sect. Lin Feng had also met these people and could be considered familiar with them. However, Lin Feng did not know what Ancestor Jadeite and the others were plotting in secret. He was coerced into participating and could not become a core member at all. Of course, Lin Feng did not care. He was still leisurely studying those minor combat techniques of laws. In the secret chamber of the Jadeite sect, a few figures were sitting cross-legged. All of them had solemn expressions. Ancestor Jadeite, what exactly is your intention for recruiting that Lin Feng of unknown origins? Don't cause trouble for us when the time comes. A burly middle-aged man with curly hair said in a muffled voice. However, Ancestor Jadeite laughed coldly. Don't worry. This Lin Feng won't be causing much trouble. Moreover, he's still somewhat useful. Don't underestimate him. Do you know his strength? Strength? Isn't he a venerable who accidentally entered the Silent Galaxy? How strong can he be? At most, he'd be a top-notch venerable. That's nothing much. All of us here are top-notch venerables. Another venerable said indifferently. A top-notch venerable? Ancestor Jadeite sneered and said, Lin Feng has comprehended the advanced planetary law and undergone 7 life transitions. He's not as simple as a top-notch venerable. He's very likely a quasi-emperor. What? A quasi-emperor? Hearing Ancestor Jadeite's words, these mysterious venerables finally took it seriously, and their expressions gradually turned solemn. Ancestor Jadeite, why did you bring an expert who might be a quasi-emperor here? If he causes trouble, we'll have a huge problem. That's right. We don't care about a top-notch venerable. but a quasi-emperor won't be so easy to handle. Although these venerables were all top-notch venerables, they had all comprehended rudimentary or planetary laws. Only with the enhancement of laws could they become top-notch venerables. However, venerables with advanced laws were different. They were all at least top-notch venerables, and there was an 80% chance that they would be quasi-emperors. Even though there were many top-notch venerables, there were relatively few quasi-emperors. Hence, a quasi-emperor was still very important and valuable. These venerables were also in a good environment. Their comprehension of laws was really much better. If they were in the universe, so many venerables who had comprehended rudimentary laws or planetary laws would be incredible. Only in such a unique environment in the silent galaxy could such a miraculous situation come to be. It's precisely because he might be a quasi-emperor that I kept him. Don't forget that the array in the Void Sky Divine Temple requires a lot of consumption. A quasi-emperor is comparable to more than 10 top-notch venerables. Let him exhaust himself. He'll be lucky to survive. Everyone came to a realization. Ancestor Jadeite was indeed insidious. He actually intended to use Lin Feng as cannon fodder. This kind of person believes he's powerful but conceals his strength, thinking that he can turn the tables and take advantage of the crisis. Then I'll let him have a good taste of the cosmic array. A trace of coldness had already appeared in Ancestor Jadeite eyes. He had long made such arrangements for Lin Feng. For a moment, the many venerables continued to discuss some details. It was not that simple for them to join forces in secret. These details were more important. They're out. Lin Feng sat upright in the room. However, his mental power was extremely powerful. Moreover, even if he did not use his mental power and used the law of space to spy on them, it was still impossible to guard against. Hence, Lin Feng could easily detect that many mysterious venerables were constantly entering and exiting the Jadeite sect during this period of time. It seemed like they were up to something big. As expected, as soon as these mysterious venerables left, Lin Feng received a message from Ancestor Jadeite. They would officially take action in 3 days. In 3 days, Lin Feng took a deep breath. He had been waiting for a long time and was getting impatient. They were finally about to attack. Divine Sovereign Void Sky and Ancestor Jadeite. When the time came, he would just wait and see. He would like to see what trump cards both parties had. 3 days later, Ancestor Jadeite personally invited Lin Feng. Venerable Lin Feng, everything has been arranged. Today is the decennial grand meeting at the Void Sky Divine Temple. Divine Sovereign Void Sky will also appear. We will all head to the Void Sky Divine Temple. Are we making the move today? Lin Feng opened his eyes and looked calmly at Ancestor Jadeite. That's right, today. We've already made all the arrangements. When the time comes, Venerable Lin Feng just has to obey my instructions. Once we attack, don't hold back. We must go all out to destroy everything in the Void Sky Divine Temple. Understood. Lin Feng nodded. A smile appeared on Ancestor Jadeite's lips. All right. Let's go to the Void Sky Divine Temple now. Ancestor Jadeite immediately set off and led Lin Feng to the Void Sky Divine Temple. The two of them left the planet together. In the center of the 81 planets, the huge planet followed a strange pattern. It was positioned around the center of the cosmic array and contained a daunting power. That was the Void Sky Divine Temple and also the base of the Divine Sovereign Void Sky. The eye of the array formed from 81 planets was on this planet. Lin Feng glanced at this planet, and his heart sank. His expression also turned solemn. Array. The array enveloping this planet was the cosmic array of 81 planets. Even Lin Feng could not penetrate it with the law of space. Clearly, this array also had the ability to confine space. Impressive. Divine Sovereign Void Sky has indeed comprehended the law of space. Moreover, he possesses so many laws. The array he set up is indeed powerful. Lin Feng was also secretly shocked. Seeing something with his own eyes was better than knowing it by its reputation. In the past, he had only caught a glimpse of the situation and did not know how powerful the cosmic array was. But now, he had a feeling that once he stepped into this cosmic array, it would probably be very troublesome for him to come out again. In the universe, Lin Feng had never seen such a powerful cosmic array. This divine sovereign void sky was not simple. Seeing Lin Feng's abnormal expression, a strange look flashed across Ancestor Jadeite's eyes as well. Venerable Lin Feng, this cosmic array is not simple. It was personally set up by divine sovereign void sky back then, and perfected by generations of nomological deities. Eventually, it became so powerful. It is the foundation of how we can establish ourselves in the silent galaxy. Lin Feng was even more curious. He asked calmly, with this cosmic array, wouldn't divine sovereign void sky's power be redoubled? We've naturally thought of the problem of the cosmic array. Once we attack, the cosmic array will be paralyzed. After planning for so long, we're certain of it. Is that so? Lin Feng looked at Ancestor Jadeite calmly. He was certain that only half of the other party's words were true. They had prepared for so long, so they had definitely thought of the problem of the cosmic array. However, was the cosmic array that easy to paralyze? There were probably some issues with that. Venerable Lin Feng, once we attack later, the array might activate. However, it doesn't matter. The array can't even work at half its full power, and it will break down completely soon. At that time, divine sovereign void sky will definitely die. Lin Feng did not say anything, but he already understood. Cannon fodder? How could Lin Feng not know that the period when the array was activated was probably the time for the cannon fodder to be consumed? He had probably already been used as cannon fodder by Ancestor Jadeite. However, it was still uncertain who was the cannon fodder. Let's go. Ancestor Jadeite flew straight towards the Void Sky Divine Temple with Lin Feng. The Void Sky Divine Temple was magnificent, but also heavily guarded. Ancestor Jadeite led Lin Feng to the Void Sky Divine Temple. They even encountered an inspection. Lin Feng's identity was a little special. He had joined the Jadeite sect along the way. However, Ancestor Jadeite was long prepared. Hence, even though they were delayed for a while, they still passed the inspection. The two of them entered the Void Sky Divine Temple. In fact, the entire cosmic array had long enveloped the entire planet. On the other hand, the Void Sky Divine Temple did not have any arrays. The two of them entered the Divine Temple smoothly. At this moment, a large number of cultivators had already gathered in the Divine Temple. All of them were venerables. Swoosh! When Lin Feng and Ancestor Jadeite arrived, countless gazes converged on Lin Feng. There was scrutiny and confusion in these people's gazes. Lin Feng did not know how many of them were in contact with Ancestor Jadeite. However, Lin Feng knew that there must be people serving divine sovereign void sky among them. When the battle broke out, it was still uncertain who would be the final victor. Both parties had concealed themselves very deeply. More and more people appeared in the Void Sky Divine Temple. Without exception, all of them were venerables. Be it archaic or nomological cultivators, only venerables were qualified to participate in the grand event of the Void Sky Divine Temple. However, as time passed, Divine Sovereign Void Sky still did not appear. Why hasn't the Divine Sovereign come out yet? Could it be that Divine Sovereign is still in seclusion, like before? That's possible. The Divine Sovereign didn't exit seclusion last time. Many venerables discussed in low voices. They were not surprised that Divine Sovereign Void Sky did not appear at all. After waiting for a long time, finally, a Divine Temple Venerable came to inform everyone. Apologies, Venerables. The Divine Sovereign is in seclusion and can't come out to meet you. Therefore, as before, everyone can just report the situation. As expected, Divine Sovereign Void Sky did not appear. Lin Feng saw a sharp glint appear in Ancestor Jadeite's eyes. They had probably already expected this. Or rather, they had already investigated thoroughly and knew that Divine Sovereign Void Sky was in seclusion. This also gave them the opportunity to act. I have an important matter to report to the Divine Sovereign. Suddenly, an unfamiliar venerable stood up, his eyes glinting. If Venerable Moyu has any important information, just report it to me. I'll report it to the Divine Sovereign. Venerable Xianxia, this matter is of great importance. I have to meet the Divine Sovereign personally. Xianxia frowned. In his impression, Venerable Moyu was not someone who would cause trouble, let alone have the guts to cause trouble in the Void Sky Divine Temple. Why was he a little different today? At this thought, Venerable Xianxia's expression gradually turned cold. He said coldly, "Venerable Moyu, no matter what it is, can you bear the responsibility if you disturb the Divine Sovereign?" Faced with Venerable Xianxia's stern rebuke, a strange look flashed across Venerable Moyu's eyes. He said in a low voice, "No matter what, I have to see the Divine Sovereign personally." "How dare you?" Venerable Xianxia did not give an inch. He did not know what was going on with Venerable Moyu today, but from Venerable Moyu's determined attitude, he vaguely sensed that something was amiss. Venerable Xianxia had even secretly informed the Venerables of the Divine Temple outside. However, it was still too late. There was a ripping noise. At some point, a scarlet short sword had appeared in Venerable Moyu's hand. At this moment, the scarlet short sword was emitting a blood-red light, emanating a terrifying aura. "What are you trying to do?" Just as Venerable Xianxia was about to make a move, dozens of Venerables suddenly appeared in the conference hall. All of them unleashed their laws and instantly on Venerable Xianxia. "Ah, you're going to revolt." Venerable Xianxia finally understood, but it was already too late. How much pressure would it be when the laws of dozens of Venerables acted on him at the same time? Once the laws swept over, their power was terrifying, not inferior to the power of those combat bodies at all. Using laws, dozens of Venerables killed Venerable Xianxia instantly. For a moment, the entire conference hall erupted into chaos. "What are you trying to do?" Those Venerables who were loyal to the Divine Sovereign Void Sky were furious. They all used their combat bodies, but they were killed before their combat bodies could be manifested. 90% of the Venerables in the conference hall were all in contact with Ancestor Jadeite in secret. Even Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. The faction of Ancestor Jadeite and the others had exceeded his imagination. He did not expect so many people to oppose Divine Sovereign Void Sky. It seemed like Divine Sovereign Void Sky had indeed incurred the wrath of the masses. However, could these people alone overthrow Divine Sovereign Void Sky? Lin Feng still felt that it was a little unrealistic. After all, Divine Sovereign Void Sky had the combat power of a Grand Emperor. Ancestor Jadeite and the others knew better than anyone how terrifying Divine Sovereign Void Sky was. Relying on numbers alone was not enough to deal with Divine Sovereign Void Sky. Moreover, Divine Sovereign Void Sky did not rule over 81 planets by relying on a huge faction, but on his own powerful strength. As long as Divine Sovereign Void Sky was alive, it would be useless even if the Void Sky Divine Temple was destroyed. "Everyone, clean up the Void Sky Divine Temple." Ancestor Jadeite was in high spirits and quickly gave the order. He seemed to be an important figure in this operation. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. These Venerables quickly left and began to clean up the opposition in the Void Sky Divine Temple. "Ancestor Jadeite, even if we take over the Void Sky Divine Temple, what's the use while Divine Sovereign Void Sky is alive?" Lin Feng asked bluntly. "Venerable Lin Feng, look, what's that?" Lin Feng suddenly flew out of the hall. He saw 3 incomparably huge combat bodies in the terrifying cosmos outside. These combat bodies had all reached billions of kilometers. Although they were far inferior to Lin Feng's current 28 billion kilometer combat body, Lin Feng had practically never heard of a Venerable with a billion-kilometer combat body in the universe. This had almost reached the limit of a Venerable. If a Venerable had not undergone metamorphosis with a consummate combat body, cultivating their combat body to billions of kilometers would simply be a fantasy. But now, all 3 of them had actually cultivated to billions of kilometers. It was unbelievable. Venerable Lin Feng, do you find it unbelievable? Although we can't leave the silent galaxy, and although it's filled with danger, there are also all kinds of great opportunities. Who would have thought that there would actually be new substances in the silent galaxy? Relying on new substances, the combat bodies of the 3 ancestors reached billions of kilometers. They also comprehended laws to the level of advanced laws. The combat power of every ancestor is comparable to a grand emperor. Ancestor Jadeite's eyes were filled with madness, excitement, and anticipation. 3 ancestors, 3 top-notch quasi-emperors, and they had comprehended advanced laws. With a 1,000-fold enhancement, they were comparable to grand emperors. This was the true trump card that allowed Ancestor Jadeite to oppose the divine Emperor Void Sky. Even Lin Feng was stunned by such a show hand. Apart from himself, this was the first time he had seen anyone with the combat power of a Grand Emperor as a venerable. Originally, Lin Feng thought that he might be a unique cultivator in the universe in that sense. But now, in the silent galaxy, cultivators who could comprehend planetary laws were everywhere. Cultivators who could comprehend advanced planetary laws were also not uncommon. Venerables could have the combat power of Grand Emperors did not seem that unbelievable. All right, Venerable Lin Feng, it's your turn to contribute now. Suddenly, Ancestor Jadeite changed the topic and stared at Lin Feng with a half-smile. However, there was a trace of coldness in his eyes. Is it my turn to contribute? Lin Feng's gaze was a little surprised. That's right, Venerable Lin Feng. Do you see the Void Sky Divine Temple ahead? Below the Void Sky Divine Temple is the secret chamber of Divine Sovereign Void Sky. He's in seclusion in the secret chamber. The cosmic array is not switched off. It's partially switched off, but the core of the Void Sky Divine Temple is naturally a little special. That's why a contribution from Venerable Lin Feng is needed. A mocking smile appeared on Ancestor Jadeite's lips. Cannon fodder. They were clearly intending to use Lin Feng as cannon fodder. Moreover, so what if Lin Feng was a quasi-emperor? Ancestor Jadeite was also a quasi-emperor. There were even a few cultivators who appeared behind Ancestor Jadeite. The auras on their bodies were extremely powerful. They were all archaic cultivators, and were also quasi-emperors. Heh! Lin Feng smiled. This Ancestor Jadeite was really cautious. Moreover, he already saw Lin Feng very highly. Ancestor Jadeite even guessed that Lin Feng was a quasi-emperor. Cannon fodder at the level of quasi-emperors was not common, but if they wanted to reduce their losses, they needed cannon fodder. Otherwise, Ancestor Jadeite would not be willing to go in and face Divine Sovereign Void Sky directly. After all, Divine Sovereign Void Sky's reputation over billions of years was still there. Which cultivator would not fear him? Then, using cannon fodder was the best choice. At that time, no matter Lin Feng's origins or what Lin Feng's goal was, what were the chances of surviving against Divine Sovereign Void Sky? Ancestors with the combat power of 3 Grand Emperors and hundreds of venerables. How generous. What a pity. Pity? What a pity that you're not very lucky. Boom. Lin Feng waved his hand, and the law of tides and the law of annihilation immediately descended. In the cosmos, the terrifying power of laws enveloped Ancestor Jadeite and the other quasi-emperors like rolling waves. I was already prepared for this move of yours. Combat body. Ancestor Jadeite did not expect Lin Feng to really be willing to be cannon fodder. Hence, he was also prepared. Unfortunately, before they could use their combat bodies, they felt an aura as vast as the sun. No, even more terrifying than the sun, erupt. A combat body, a massive combat body. At this moment, Lin Feng had manifested his combat body. Although it was only the tidal combat body, the terrifying 28 billion kilometer combat body was simply stunning. In front of Lin Feng, the combat bodies of Ancestor Jadeite and the others were tiny. Moreover, Lin Feng had comprehended advanced laws. Impossible! Ancestor Jadeite's face was pale. He never expected that the Lin Feng he saw as cannon fodder was actually a Grand Emperor. That's right, a Grand Emperor. Ancestor Jadeite knew very well how terrifying a combat body of 28 billion kilometers with a 1,000-fold enhancement was. That was a combat body of about 3 light-years. It was 100% comparable to a Grand Emperor, and a senior Grand Emperor at that. Even the 3 ancestors were probably not Lin Feng's match. Ancestor Jadeite was very regretful. He even wished that he had joined forces with Lin Feng. That way, they would have 4 Grand Emperors, and they would have a greater chance of dealing with Divine Sovereign Void Sky. Unfortunately, There was no cure for regret in this world. Rumble. Lin Feng slapped down. The terrifying power was like crushing an ant. Ancestor Jadeite and the other quasi-emperors all struggled frantically, trying to resist. However, it was futile. Humph! The entire cosmos seemed to have fallen silent all of a sudden. The area where Ancestor Jadeite and the others were located had almost become a vacuum. The combat bodies of Ancestor Jadeite and the others had long been reduced to dust. Although there was only a difference of one word between a quasi-emperor and a grand emperor, there was a world of difference. At this moment, everyone was stunned by this turn of events, including the three ancestors. Damn it! What's wrong with Ancestor Jadeite? How can there be another grand emperor? Moreover, he has comprehended advanced laws with such a terrifying combat body. Even if we join forces as three grand emperors, we might not be able to kill him. This is another grand emperor not much inferior to divine sovereign void sky. The three ancestors were very displeased. Ancestor Jadeite was just their pawn. On account of Ancestor Jadeite's strength as a quasi-emperor and the faction of the Jadeite sect, they gave Ancestor Jadeite the authority to act. However, they did not expect that Ancestor Jadeite would actually cause them so much trouble. A grand emperor other than the divine sovereign void sky. If things went wrong, it might become the greatest variable. Of course, since the three ancestors dared to plot against divine sovereign void sky, who was suspected to be a top-notch grand emperor, they must have something to fall back on. Even if Lin Feng was a grand emperor, the three ancestors were not afraid. However, the additional variables might very well affect their plan to deal with divine sovereign void sky. They could not tolerate this kind of impact. Ancestors. We have already figured out this person's origins. Report. We just learned that this is Venerable Lin Feng. He came to the Silent Galaxy by accident from the outside universe, and happened to be discovered by Ancestor Jadeite. However, Ancestor Jadeite seemed to have seen this person as cannon fodder and wanted to exhaust him, so he was killed by him instead. What an idiot. Using a Grand Emperor as cannon fodder? How did Ancestor Jadeite come up with such an idea? He really had his death coming. The three ancestors were all very angry. Actually, they could roughly guess Lin Feng's origins. He must have come from the outside universe. Otherwise, it was impossible for such a powerful cultivator to appear out of thin air. Ancestor, he's here. The three ancestors looked up. Lin Feng's massive combat body was already approaching the three ancestors. Venerable Lin Feng. This is all a misunderstanding. Ancestor Jadeite was too foolish. Moreover, he tried to offend a grand emperor. He deserved to die. One of the ancestors said loudly at once. Lin Feng did not attack directly, which meant that there was room for negotiation. Now was the critical moment to deal with divine sovereign void sky. The gains did not make up for the losses by offending an unfamiliar and mysterious grand emperor like Lin Feng. Ancestor Jadeite had his death coming. However, I'm very interested in this plan. Can the three of you allow me to join? Lin Feng's words caused the eyes of the three ancestors to light up. Haha, of course. We can't be happier. Lin Feng naturally had his own considerations. Originally, he wanted to face divine sovereign void sky directly. However, since he had helpers now, why would he refuse them? After all, divine sovereign void sky was very likely a top-notch grand emperor, and Lin Feng was not confident that he would definitely win. No matter who won between the three ancestors and divine sovereign void sky, it would be beneficial to Lin Feng. Venerable Lin Feng, divine sovereign void sky has many secrets and treasures. When the time comes, the four of us will divide divine sovereign void sky's treasures and become true grand emperors. How satisfying would that be? The three ancestors laughed heartily, as if they had reached a strategic alliance with Lin Feng at once. However, everyone knew how fragile the foundation of the alliance between the two parties was, and that it could collapse at any time. But while divine sovereign void sky was still alive, they could still barely manage to maintain this alliance. But suddenly, the cosmic array began to activate, and a terrifying pressure descended. Even Lin Feng felt the pressure. as expected of an array that could withstand a Grand Emperor-level silent beast. However, with a ripple from the cosmic array, this pressure disappeared without a trace. Success! The array has been broken. Divine Sovereign Void Sky, prepare to die. A trace of excitement appeared on the faces of the three ancestors. Destroying the cosmic array was the most important part. Although a variable like Lin Feng had appeared, fortunately, the plan was still successful. Once the cosmic array was broken, Divine Sovereign Void Sky might as well have lost his wings. The majestic voice of the ancestors echoed in the cosmos, as if it was shattering it. However, not a single ancestor dared to attack first. They were all waiting for the legendary Divine Sovereign Void Sky. Bang! Heartbeats suddenly sounded in the quiet cosmos. Thud, thud. The heartbeats became more and more intense. Everyone's gaze was focused on the Void Sky Divine Temple. Thud, 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 thud. The heartbeat became more and more frequent. Even venerables seemed to be affected by the sound of the heartbeats. Their expressions changed drastically. Although Lin Feng was not affected, his expression was also very solemn. This was because he sensed a terrifying aura diffusing out of the Void Sky Divine Temple. How many years has it been? A faint sigh sounded, and the sound of heartbeats suddenly stopped. However, the three ancestors looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy. A figure strolled out of the Void Sky Divine Temple. He was dressed in white and had an incomparably handsome face. His pitch-black eyes were as deep as the cosmos. In particular, its body seemed to be emitting all kinds of strange auras. There was space, flames, and ice. In short, all kinds of auras intertwined, forming an extremely special aura that would be unforgettable with just a glance. Divine Sovereign Void Sky, the ruler of this region, the guardian of 81 planets. Buzz. In the beginning, Lin Feng did not pay much attention to it. However, as soon as Divine Sovereign Void Sky appeared, the sacred stone of anathema on Lin Feng's body actually shook violently, and even emitted a faint glow. At the same time, Lin Feng was surprised to find that there was also a glow on Divine Sovereign Void Sky. The sacred stone of anathema. Divine Sovereign Void Sky actually had a sacred stone of anathema on him as well, and it was even stronger than the sacred stone of anathema on Lin Feng. The sacred stone of anathema was a supreme treasure of the universe, and did not even belong to this universe at all. Lin Feng felt that this might be a treasure that had fallen into the universe from the chaos. After all, he had never heard of anything that could help cultivators comprehend laws. This was also Lin Feng's greatest secret. But now, Lin Feng realized that the other party had actually figured out his greatest secret, because Divine Sovereign Void Sky also had the same secret. Swoosh! Their eyes met. Be it the indifferent Divine Sovereign Void Sky or Lin Feng, who was prepared to reap the benefits while the two parties fought. Their expressions changed drastically at this moment. How could they allow others to have the sacred stone of anathema? Lin Feng had never expected such an unexpected turn of events. His previous plan was to wait for the three ancestors to fight to the death with Divine Sovereign Void Sky, and for both parties to suffer heavy losses before coming out to clean up the mess. Even though the three ancestors knew that Lin Feng would be eyeing them from the sidelines without putting in real effort, there was nothing they could do. They did not dare to offend Lin Feng. As long as Lin Feng did not interfere and help Divine Sovereign Void Sky, that would be the best outcome. As for asking Lin Feng to work, even the three ancestors had never thought of it. However, who would have thought that the secret that Lin Feng was least willing to expose would actually be exposed in front of Divine Sovereign Void Sky? Moreover, the other party also had the sacred stone of anathema. Then, everything made sense. Why could Divine Sovereign Void Sky comprehend so many laws? It turned out that the fundamental reason was that Divine Sovereign Void Sky also had the sacred stone of anathema. Boom! Without any hesitation, Lin Feng unleashed his combat body. His 28 billion kilometer combat body erupted completely, and a mighty power swept through the cosmos without restraint. Divine Sovereign Void Sky also used his combat body. It seemed to be similar to the combat bodies of the three ancestors. Neither exceeded 10 billion, but it had also reached a terrifying height of more than 9 billion kilometers. Fight! Kill! Without any hesitation, Lin Feng threw a punch. Divine Sovereign Void Sky did the same and threw a punch. Boom! The two of them clashed head-on. Lin Feng's combat body emitted crackling sounds. At the same time, a large number of cells in his combat body were collapsing and being annihilated. Powerful. Simply too powerful. The power of Divine Sovereign Void Sky had exceeded Lin Feng's imagination. No, this is almost the power of a 10-light-year combat body. It's infinitely close to a top-notch Grand Emperor, or even a top-notch Grand Emperor. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes were filled with wariness. Being close to a top-notch Grand Emperor meant that Divine Sovereign Void Sky was infinitely close to a top-notch Grand Emperor. He could even be considered a top-notch Grand Emperor. Ordinary top-notch Grand Emperors actually had combat bodies of more than 10 light-years, and had comprehended the ultimate planetary law. Even if Divine Sovereign Void Sky had comprehended advanced laws and a thousandfold enhancement, he would only have a combat body of more than 90 trillion kilometers, which was about equivalent to a combat body of 1 light-year. There was only one possibility for him to attain a combat body of 10 light-years, and that was for the combat body to be enhanced by 10,000 times. Ultimate law. Lin Feng enunciated each word clearly as he stared intently at Divine Sovereign Void Sky. The ultimate planetary law could enhance the combat body by 10,000 times. That was the only way Divine Sovereign Void Sky could reach the level equivalent to a combat body 10 light-years, comparable to a top-notch Grand Emperor. Lin Feng had always wanted to comprehend the ultimate law, but even with the sacred stone of anathema, it would take a long time. At least for now, Lin Feng had no clue. However, with the sacred stone of anathema, and with a long time, there would be almost no obstacles to comprehending the ultimate law. Divine Sovereign Void Sky had already cultivated for billions of years. It had been too long. From the looks of it, he had obtained the sacred stone of anathema for a long time. Hence, comprehending the ultimate law was completely normal. The sacred stone of anathema was an earth-shattering secret. Hence, although Lin Feng and Divine Sovereign Void Sky originally had other considerations and plans, once the two of them learned that the other party also had the sacred stone of anathema, they put everything aside for one goal, to kill the other and seize the other's sacred stone of anathema. Even if the Void Sky Divine Temple was destroyed, even if the 81 planets were blasted apart and all the cultivators were killed, it was insignificant in the eyes of Divine Sovereign Void Sky. The sacred stone of anathema was the most crucial thing. Hence, even though Lin Feng and Divine Sovereign Void Sky had never met before and did not have any deep grudges, at this moment, they were engaged in a life-or-death battle, and it was abnormally devastating. Even the three ancestors were a little stunned. Weren't they the ones who wanted to overthrow the Void Sky Divine Temple? Lin Feng was an outsider who had never even seen Divine Sovereign Void Sky. Was there such a deep grudge between him and Divine Sovereign Void Sky? Why were Lin Feng and Divine Sovereign Void Sky like mortal enemies now? They were simply fighting with their lives and attacking in a frenzy at all costs. What should we do now? Looks like the situation is a bit beyond our expectations. Venerable Lin Feng is really strong. He has a combat body of nearly 30 billion. With the thousandfold enhancement of laws, he's about equivalent to a Grand Emperor with a combat body of 3 light-years, right? But even so, Venerable Lin Feng is at a disadvantage and can only receive the attacks passively. He probably won't be able to hold out for long. Divine Sovereign Void Sky actually has the power of a top-notch Grand Emperor. It's unbelievable. What's even more incredible is that Divine Sovereign Void Sky had comprehended the ultimate law. Actually, we should have thought of this long ago. If he hadn't comprehended the ultimate law, how could Divine Sovereign Void Sky have defeated those powerful silent beasts? The three ancestors' expressions were solemn. Seeing Lin Feng retreat step by step, the three of them made up their minds. No matter the reason why Lin Feng was fighting Divine Sovereign Void Sky to the death, at least for the time being, the four of them had a common enemy, and that was Divine Sovereign Void Sky. They could not let Divine Sovereign Void Sky defeat Lin Feng. Attack! The three ancestors no longer hesitated and immediately attacked. golden flame pearl, sky sealing hammer, spirit slayer sword. The three ancestors all used their own methods. They did not use their combat bodies to fight directly. What a joke. They only had a combat body of billions of kilometers in total. Even with the thousand-fold enhancement of advanced laws, it only barely approached a Grand Emperor's 1 light-year combat body. With such a combat body, even if the three of them joined forces, how could they be a match for Divine Sovereign Void Sky? With a single charge, the three ancestors would probably be crushed. Hence, the three ancestors knew their advantage very well, and that was origin weapons. The three origin weapons had clearly been refined by the three ancestors to an extremely powerful level. When used together, even Divine Sovereign Void Sky had no choice but to be cautious. However, if the three ancestors had origin weapons, did Divine Sovereign Void Sky not? Void Sky Divine Temple. Suppress. Rumble. As Divine Sovereign Void Sky waved his hand, the magnificent and huge Divine Temple below actually slowly soared into the air. This Void Sky Divine Temple was actually Divine Lord Void Sky's origin weapon. No wonder Divine Sovereign Void Sky had always stayed in the Void Sky Divine Temple. Even though the cosmic array had been temporarily destroyed, Divine Sovereign Void Sky was still very calm. The Void Sky Divine Temple was Divine Sovereign Void Sky's home ground. It was where he was at his strongest. The three ancestors clearly knew that as well, so they all stayed far away and did not approach the Void Sky Divine Temple. The Void Sky Divine Temple emitted a dazzling light. It suddenly expanded infinitely, as if it was covering the entire cosmos. Then it smashed down hard. The three origin weapons of the three ancestors were all suppressed in the Void Sky Divine Temple, constantly struggling. Clearly, the Void Sky Divine Temple could suppress them for a short period of time, but not for long. The three ancestors were only going to rely on three origin weapons to deal with a top-notch Grand Emperor, Divine Sovereign Void Sky. Lin Feng felt that it was unlikely. How could the three ancestors not know how powerful Divine Sovereign Void Sky was? Or rather, the three ancestors must have stronger trump cards, or even lethal trump cards that they had yet to use. Suppress. The huge Void Sky Divine Temple actually crushed down towards Lin Feng again, intending to suppress even Lin Feng. Even if it could only suppress Lin Feng for a short period of time, Divine Sovereign Void Sky could severely injure or even kill Lin Feng in just this short period of time. To the three ancestors, their origin weapon being suppressed might not be a big deal, and would just take a little more effort. However, to Lin Feng it was a life-or-death moment. Ancestors, if you won't exert yourselves now, I'll be leaving. Lin Feng's voice echoed in the cosmos. At the same time, a pearl appeared in his hand. Starfell Pearl, go? The Starfell Pearl spun and immediately expanded, blasting open the Void Sky Divine Temple. This also showed the difference between two origin weapons. This was Lin Feng's current trump card. The Starfell Pearl instantly expanded to hundreds of thousands of kilometers, equivalent to a combat body of 2 light-years. It whistled as it collided with the Void Sky Divine Temple. Bang! With a violent collision, the Void Sky Divine Temple was sent flying, and the origin weapons of the three ancestors also broke free. Crunch! At the same time, traces of cracks actually appeared on the Void Sky Divine Temple. With just the power of a single strike, the Starfell Pearl had already cracked the Void Sky Divine Temple. The difference was so great that even Divine Sovereign Void Sky was slightly surprised. Fall! Lin Feng held the Starfell Pearl in his hand and threw it with all his might. It whistled towards Divine Sovereign Void Sky like a meteor. Boom! Divine Sovereign Void Sky hurriedly retracted the Void Sky Divine Temple. The Void Sky Divine Temple he had refined for billions of years was clearly not a match for Lin Feng's Starfell Pearl. Hence, he could only use the combat body comparable to a top-notch Grand Emperor to resist it head-on. The power of a 10 light-year combat body was indeed impressive. When Lin Feng's Starfell Pearl smashed down, it was actually blocked for the first time. In the past, when Lin Feng used the Starfell Pearl, it had always been successful at every turn. But now it was blocked by Divine Sovereign Void Sky's combat body. However, Divine Sovereign Void Sky was not in a good state either. Although he was not severely injured, His combat body shook slightly. Clearly, the power of the Starfell Pearl was sending shockwaves through his body. Seeing how powerful Lin Feng's Starfell Pearl was, the three ancestors looked at each other, and their expressions turned solemn. It's time. This is the best opportunity. We can't miss it. All right, let's attack then. The three ancestors opened their mouths and spat out 3 pearls. As the 3 pearls were spat out, they quickly fused into one. Anti-law divine pearl. All laws must retreat. The 3 ancestors roared, as if they were shouting. Then, the pearl spun and flew directly in front of divine sovereign void sky. A beam of light shone within a radius of 100 million kilometers. The range of the light was not too wide. Be it Lin Feng's combat body or divine sovereign void sky's combat body, they could only envelop a portion of the area. However, as the light enveloped the combat body, Lin Feng felt that he could no longer use any laws. Be it the law of tides, the law of annihilation, or the law of space, they all seemed to have frozen at once. No matter what he did, he could not deploy the laws. Divine Sovereign Void Sky's expression changed drastically again. This was also the second time that Divine Sovereign Void Sky's expression had changed drastically. The first time, his expression changed drastically when he learned that Lin Feng had the sacred stone of anathema. The second time was when he saw the anti-law divine pearl of the 3 ancestors. Even when Lin Feng had used the Starfell Pearl and cracked the Void Sky Divine Temple at once, Divine Sovereign Void Sky's expression did not change at all. He was still very calm. But now, Divine Sovereign Void Sky's expression had changed drastically. The anti-law divine pearl seemed to be able to confine laws, preventing them from taking effect. You actually managed to refine the anti-law divine pearl? The laws of Divine Sovereign Void Sky were confined, and the aura on his body quickly declined. Venerable Lin Feng, attack! The 3 patriarchs sent a voice transmission to Lin Feng. Lin Feng also learned how powerful the anti-law divine pearl was. It could actually confine laws and make all laws retreat. Even ultimate laws probably would not be of much effect. This also meant that without the enhancement of laws, Divine Sovereign Void Sky's combat body was only close to 10 billion kilometers in size. This anti-law divine pearl might not be of much use against true Grand Emperors, but it was very effective against cultivators like Divine Sovereign Void Sky, who relied on the enhancement of laws to have the combat power of a Grand Emperor. It turned out that this was the true trump card of the 3 ancestors. Starfell Pearl go? Lin Feng quickly reacted. Although he was also affected and his combat body strength had decreased drastically, he still had a lethal weapon, the Starfell Pearl. The Starfell Pearl was completely unaffected. Hence, Lin Feng held the Starfell Pearl in his hand and seized this opportunity to smash it towards Divine Sovereign Void Sky. A terrifying, suffocating pressure enveloped Divine Sovereign Void Sky. Lin Feng's reaction was too fast, and the Starfell Pearl was too fast. However, Divine Sovereign Void Sky was still calm at this moment. After all, he was a powerful existence who had comprehended the ultimate law. The ultimate law was the end of the planetary law. What came above it would be the galactic law. That would already be something capable of destroying galaxies and stir up a monstrous cosmic storm. Ordinary cultivators could not imagine it at all, and the ultimate planetary law was the end. Although the anti-law divine pearl was very strong, it could not completely imprison the ultimate planetary law. Hence, Divine Sovereign Void Sky's massive combat body entered space in the blink of an eye. Boom! Lin Feng's Starfell Pearl smashed into Divine Sovereign Void Sky. That was a portion of the combat body that had been left outside and had not fused into the space. It was directly shattered by the Starfell Pearl. Even space shattered. Unfortunately, Divine Sovereign Void Sky's figure had already completely disappeared.